and changes are happening faster. And what that means is you can't just bank on your business and looking at a program of growth, but also survivability, which also might mean contraction. It's important that you establish your program requirements today, but then you plan on the opportunities for growth, which means providing in the lease document that you enter into how you're going to grow and what types of rights and options you'll have in your lease document. And what can you do to prepare yourself and your operation going forward in these tough economic times? Well, there's two parts to a lease, and that is the actual lease agreement, the document, and the provisions that you negotiate going in, and also the design of your office space. There are furniture systems that allow for a greater concentration of personnel within a smaller amount of space. It also provides for great flexibility in the design of your space because on a weekend you can change your office layout. So there's things that you can look at in your office plan that can make a greater utilization of the existing space you have. Also, in preparing for the future, you design your space so that based upon other leases and other space in the property, you can expand. And so when you do need to expand, you can break down a wall, and you can grow your business, your not-for-profit business, without a large disruption to the rest of the office space. But that has to be planned going in. And the other component to this is what happens, as we're seeing today, the budget's being cut, and perhaps you don't need as much office space as you did in the past. So does your office plan allow you to sublease portions of your space, again, without disrupting the flow of your ongoing business?
Every agency does not need to have its own office space, for meetings and for those kind of purposes. You also have a lot of duplication in management, but that's a harder one for you to look at. You got to start looking at that. Service organizations where you can have several agencies that are driven by the management of a few.
What we have been told, or what we were told initially, is that what's at stake here is your share of $300 billion, or the state share of $300 billion. That has now increased. We're now looking at your share of some $4.5 billion. What you have to know is that based on the census count, your share of that $4.5 billion will be repeated over a period of 10 years for those people who are in Broward. For 2000 census, we only got responses from some 63% of the people in Broward County. That's very, very low.
To work on getting word out to those particular areas that have been historically hard to count. Within your own not-for-profits, again, we need your help in getting out to those populations, educating folks, letting them know that it's not, there's no fear, there shouldn't be any fear involved in being counted. Their social security numbers will not be collected. There will never be a time when that information can be turned over.
The beauty of the nonprofit sector is this. At each level, whether it's federal, state, or local, there is equity in terms of your ability to achieve and get those dollars. Just to give you some just hard numbers, the state of Florida was eligible for up to $13 billion via the ARRA. Out of that $13 billion, we announced that we're going to be receiving $11 billion, the bulk of which is going to be spread across three major departments in the state of Florida. Department of Transportation, Department of Education, Department of Health and Human Services. Because we have a lot of emerging nonprofits, being these are nonprofits that have only been around 18 months, 2 years max, is that in order to apply, they're looking for a 3 to 5 year track record. That's what all the county commissioners have told me that I've talked to is we have to see 3 to 5 years of performance already on paper. And on paper is key because a lot of the emerging nonprofits, especially in my neck of the woods, for lack of a better term, don't have their books together. They don't have their books together. If you don't have your books together, it's hard to get out there and say, well, I'm deserving, or we've been doing. I was to give you $25,000 today, what's the return on that investment? You know, where is it going to go? I mean, how much is going to be used for administrative costs? Because that's key, especially at the state level. The state wants to make sure that you're using less than 10%, I repeat, less than 10% of what you're given for administrative costs.
Is don't let the thinness of the booklet deceive you. This is 30 years in the making. Everything is no frill, only skill. We have that. We have Naomi, we have Betty, we have Mary Register, Paulie, we have Nguyen, you can sit down. We have Louise, we have Corky. Positive attitude can help your natural memory. So when next time when you go into a room, I want you to look around, look at everyone's face, and just be alive. Observation, very, very important. Even if you just open your mind's eye a little bit more to the skill, and even if you don't use it, you're going to have an advantage when you meet people and when you read. It's an overlapping effect. We have, say, hear the name, pick a feature, and the next item, which is the biggest thing, and that's why I'm giving you the booklets to kind of practice with, is to take a name and make it into a picture. If you use the energy to get my last name into a picture, it takes no more energy to put the first name in. In other words, what I'm trying to say is it gets easier once you make the connection and the picture on the person's face. You know, all these images, including, what's that? Memory. By the way, there's short-term memory and there's long-term memory. Short-term memory needs to be filled correctly, and the correct way of doing that is that association technique for names and faces. Once that kind of dribbles into that short-term memory, it gets gobbled up like a eradicator in your sink, and it goes to long-term memory. That's the process, what we're trying to do. I wanted to immerse you in this thing as quickly as possible so you see the idea. And believe me, most people get that, those names of those like have stress, you're like this, and it severs that connections in the middle brain. So then when you're stressed and you want to learn something, you can bob the thing into your head for 8 hours and it will not go in. 50, give me a page number between 1 and 50. Page 15. Oh, you open 15. 15 is a weird thing because it has in the middle, right in the middle, let's see, Iraq, or up there, Iraq attacking Christian. Also, there's something about the education of people equaling out. Absolutely. So there it is about Iraq and the other things, all that. Now, what? Oh, thank you very much. Oh my God. What basically this shows me is that I use elements to remember certain things.